Hello, my friends, and I hope you are having a fantastic day. Today I found yet another article that kind of, states the obvious of what we, the players, have been saying about games for a while now. But on the plus side, it's nice to see that maybe some people are starting to listen a little better. This is an article from Rock Paper Shotgun. Players are now less accepting that games will be fixed, says Paradox, after underestimating the reaction to Cities Skylines 2 performance woes. And of course, obviously, this article is entirely about the discussion of how gamers are currently reacting to games that release in less than perfect state. I will say it is impossible to release a game in a perfect state. There is going to be some kind of bug, even if it's a rare bug that no one really runs into except for 10 people because of some rare event. There's always going to be some kind of issue in software because humans are fallible and we are the ones creating this. Worse, especially on PC, not only are humans fallible, but there is a nearly infinite array of hardware, software, firmware, drivers that play together that can cause a problem with something at any moment. Add to that humans doing things in ways other humans didn't expect, and you can get just about guarantee that no matter how much time and effort you spent on quality control and testing, someone's going to have something that you didn't expect that'll fuck up the whole thing. And if your game sells enough, you're going to have a lot of someones who do that. That's not to excuse the absolutely abysmal state so many games come out in now. I'm just saying that to expect a game to be perfect is the other side of the impossible coin. It is possible to put out a game that is stable, the majority of people can play without severe issues, and really just works. It might not be 100% perfect, but it works. Now, this entire article really just talks about this Paradox Interactive. They recently just put off their Prison Architect 2 simulator indefinitely because they found that they're having problems with the performance issues, which is the same thing that gave people problems with their game Cities Skylines 2 that released in late 2023. I do remember the number of people who were very upset about the performance issues that game was having, many saying that it was nearly unplayable. In regards to Prison Architect 2, the Deputy Chief Executive Officer Matthias Leija said that we're pretty confident that the gameplay is good, but we had quality issues, which means to give the players the game they deserve, we decided to delay it. So it's not the same kind of bucket of challenges we had with Life by You, which led to its cancellation. It's more that we haven't been able to keep the pace what we wanted. But when we do peer reviews of the game and user testing and whatnot, people give us feedback. We actually get pretty good feedback except for certain issues that we need to fix. Some of them are harder to fix than we thought. When asked what the issues were specifically, Leija said that they were technical issues rather than design. It's more, how can we make this technically high quality enough for a stable release? He continues, it's also based on the fact that we, in all transparency, see that fans right now with the squeezed budget for games have higher expectations and are less accepting that you will fix things over time. That's our take. The gaming space has always been the winner takes all type of environment. A few games bring in most of the players, and most games are dropped quite quickly. And this is even more pronounced now during maybe the last 2 years. That's at least what we read from our games and also from the others in the market. And this is someone who is literally acknowledging the fact that in current times, with people having our limited budgets, we are being far more particular about what we're buying. Say what you will, but many people are suffering with financial hardships. Everybody's having to cut back on various things as prices on food, gas, energy continue to rise. When it comes between eating and playing a game, most people, with few exceptions, will prefer to eat, meaning that they're not going to spend as much money buying games. And more than that, it makes us even more risk averse to being willing to just try a game, especially at full price. When you know that there's a possibility that that game is going to be a buggy mess, you are far more likely to not buy it. I feel like back in the 2010s, there was a much different view on what happens when a game is delayed. Cyberpunk would be the perfect example. As many times as that game was delayed, It was finally pushed out the door in the state it was in because the investors got scared that people wouldn't continue to wait. The fact is gamers will wait a long time for a good game. If Dragon Age the Veilguard, for example, looked even remotely like something that I would normally play, had kept any kind of connection with the original 3 games, and didn't look like utter shit, I would have played it. Despite the fact that it's been 10 years since the last game came out, I would have probably said, you know what, I love this franchise enough that I'm going to go ahead and give it a shot. In Cyberpunk 2077's case, a lot of people really wanted to play the game because it was something they'd been promised for a long time. It was a world they were very interested in, and they felt it was time that they got their game. When it came out in the state it did, so many people were disappointed. The fact that they managed to bounce back at all, with the DLC and the fixes in between, is pretty astounding. Now, that is a rare case, however. People are constantly saying when a game comes out buggy, well, they can fix it. They can fix it. Look at No Man's Sky. Look at Cyberpunk 2077. Look at The Witcher 3. 2 of those are CD Projekt Red products, where they released buggy and then had to fix over time. A lot of people were giving CD Projekt Red a huge amount of leeway for Cyberpunk 2077 based on the fact that they had fixed The Witcher 3 to a point that it had become an extremely popular game. Worse, when you have developers like Bethesda who seem to release a game in a less than stellar state, and then it appears that they are expecting modders to fix their issues. In the case of Starfield, for example, basically build a game people want to play. It's hard to have trust in these companies anymore. The overall industry has worn down the public trust to the point that people just aren't willing to take the risks they're used to. Add that to a diminishing budget for gaming, and you get part of the way to where we are now. There are, of course, so many other things going on, but these are 2 of the major issues in gaming. The idea of DEI and woke and all that do get talked about a lot. But part of the reason we are more willing to focus on those now than we were in the past to top it off is, again, back to the fact that we don't have the money to spend to just willy-nilly buy these games and eat the cost because it wasn't a good game. Now we feel the weight of the money we just spent on that game far more than we ever had before. So when you have developers like Ubisoft who really just think that they can continue to pump up the prices on their games and continue to neglect stories with the excuse of trying to make it more inclusive, you really start to see a problem. In the case of Paradox Interactive, they've definitely learned the hard way. When they released Cities Skylines 2, as stated earlier, there were a large number of performance issues. Leja went on to say, Cities 2, the experience there, we knew would have some issues, like in every release. We had more of that than we hoped. Some of those were definitely things we should have caught, but also the Lamplighters League, which reviewed quite well. Paradox's sense that audiences are choosier and more sensitive also comes from talking to others in the business and seeing how their games perform. Continuing on, he says, I'm always interested in how perceptions of technical shoddiness differ between players. One person's frame rate hiccup is another person's reason to refund. In regards to if there are any particular types of technical issues that people are currently more sensitive to, Leja responds, it's not new issues. People should have high expectations. It's just that in order to be certain, we should make sure that we have checked and double-checked. Some of the issues, I would argue, that we had in Cities 2 were that some issues that we had not really understood fully, and that it's totally on us. And I will say it is refreshing to see a development studio actually take the responsibility of their issues instead of trying to brush it off in any way, shape, or form. This is one of those reasons, though, that I am actually an advocate for games having an early access kind of player beta period where they do offer the game at a lower price for people to play during development. While I understand many people's issues with that, the reason I like it is that it gives the developer a much wider range of test subjects. You never know what weirdo is going to find that perfect combination that really just blows up your entire game. And it's even funnier when a whole bunch of weirdos do it because it's something that you didn't anticipate them using, and it just destroys the game. But more importantly, especially in cases of performance, it gives them the opportunity to understand how their game is going to perform on different machines. I can't imagine that it's easy to find enough different machines to really have tested all the various iterations that can occur on a PC. When it comes to development for a console, it's easier because you only have to focus on that one console architecture. You know more than likely what's going to be on it. You might have to account for updates of the console software and firmware, but realistically, you don't have to worry about too much else. A PC, however, can be far more complicated very quickly. Just look at the number of different graphic cards right out the bat. They each behave a little differently and require different things. That's why I believe we were looking at that game, The Access Unseen, and they had a note in it specifically about how Unreal Engine has an issue with AMD video cards that can only be solved if the player uninstalls the drivers and reinstalls it without the Radeon. And for a lot of people, they don't want to do that. That's frustrating. But that's something beyond the developer's control. They have no control over the fact that Unreal Engine has an issue with that specific card. The only thing they can do to fix that is to go back and program the game in an entirely different game engine. These are little things that I think sometimes gamers don't think about or don't understand because we're so focused on our end of the experience that we don't understand how the cookies are made, so to speak. Now, I'm not saying that you have to excuse everything on the basis of, oh, you know how this works. But with more understanding does come somewhat more patience. There is no excuse for an entirely broken, buggy game that I can't play. In the same article, the author spoke to Chief Creative Director Henrik Ferris, who admitted that Paradox knew that Cities Skyline 2's performance needed improvement before launch. They just miscalculated how much players would care. He says, "We were aware the performance was not great, but we underestimated how much it will be perceived by players, how seriously the player's perception would be," he said. So I think one learning with Cities 2 is if we could have brought players in to try it on a larger scale, that would have helped. Going forward, we need to have this communication with players and openness to a larger degree and quite early if possible. Our community blog series Tinto Talks is one of the way of communicating with player base even before release. But there's also, of course, closed beta tests and having dedicated enthusiasts in even earlier under NDA to help us identify issues. Not just identify issues, but also what is your feelings when you're playing the game. So this is them talking about, obviously, does this bug seem so bad to you that we need to fix it before release? Because everybody has a certain amount that they're willing to tolerate. And everybody has a certain amount that they'll even notice. There are some things that have happened in games that were bugs that I never noticed. I'm not going to lie. I've definitely been playing a game and not realized that what I was experiencing is a bug. When asked if this could be solved by just making their QA teams more robust, Ferris replied that it depends on what they're trying to fix. QA is great at finding specific bugs. It doesn't work so well with the player experience of a feature. What are the pains with accomplishing your goals? We also have the user research tests. We're bringing players to try games and see how they feel, see how they react. That's another great tool at our disposal. But at some point, you have to have a quantity of players to really capture all the issues. And that's actually something to revisit an idea on. Everybody loved Baldur's Gate 3. Well, not everybody. Baldur's Gate 3 was a huge success. Let's put it that way. And part of the reason I firmly believe for that huge success is putting it out there in early access. That gives them the opportunity to fix a lot of things, to polish a lot of player interactions, to make things more fun for people. It really gave them ability to focus on what players were thinking was fun and how they could adjust it to what they wanted to be. And in the end, the majority benefited with a game that many really enjoyed. But overall, it is nice to see that at least some developer out there, even if it's just one right now, is acknowledging that they have to take into account the fact that people have less money, that we have less time currently, and that they have to provide something that meets what we think our time and money is worth. Now, they're finding it out the hard way over and over and over again in the games industry, and it definitely hits the AAAs much harder because of their large budgets, which I'm feeling like discussed to death. But for me, I see this as a hopeful sign. The idea that anybody at all is getting it is a plus. But what do you think? Do you think that this is actually going to make any kind of difference? Do you think that they are beginning to understand that they actually have to cater to us, the players? Or are they just going to kind of continue down their own road? I'd be very interested in hearing what you have to say. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Please like, comment, subscribe, and turn on the notifications. If you really liked it, you can feel free to share it around, and I will catch you later.